right, welcome everyone. This is Matthew Gates with In the Building LA, your dedicated source for news and information on the people, projects, and policies reshaping our community. I'm joined today by a true fixture in the Los Angeles community development space, Jimar Wilson. Jimar is a community development bank executive, an adjunct professor at LA Trade Tech. He sits on the board of multiple nonprofit organizations. He's an entrepreneur that, along with his partners, is the co-founder of the Metaphor Club. I've been after this brother for a while now, and so it's a pleasure and an honor to have him on. How you doing, Jimar?
Hey, man, I'm great. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
I've been trying to get you on for a while. I'm glad it happened now, though, because I feel like the time is right for this conversation. And to have someone with your expertise kind of speak to some issues. I said the reason I wanted to get you on, one, I know your heart for community development. You have a genuine passion for stimulating economic growth in the community, whether that's been in the form of helping small business owners, working with affordable housing developers, or teaching development process to your students. And then the second is you have this unique perspective now operating as an entrepreneur, and you run a business that is literally built around creating community and carving out physical space for Black creatives in one of the most culturally significant locations in Los Angeles. So community development, is that something that you always knew you wanted to get into, or did you kind of fall into that, the way a lot of us find our kind of career paths after, high school or college?
I always wanted to get into community development since high school. The interest started budding even in junior high. Like I said, I grew up in the neighborhood, went to Virginia Road Elementary, but then I got bussed out to the Valley for junior high and senior high. My home school was Mount Vernon and Dorsey. But as the baby of the family, my older siblings and cousins went to my mom and said, it might be a good idea to send Jimar out for school. But I still was in the neighborhood, though. I still played my park league at Rancho. Still live in the neighborhood. But going out to the Valley, even in junior high, was it left a big impression on me as far as professionally thinking about what I want to do, and a lot of that came from for the first time going out to the Valley, to the suburbs, and actually seeing the very things that are marketed to you on television and in newspapers. All the nice stores, grocery stores, retail outlets, movie theaters, clean streets, non-militarized bus stops. People just walking and living freely. All the nice cars and nice homes. Seeing a lot of that, and then coming back home at the end of the day, I was always curious about what factors played into why the quality of life for people in the suburbs was materially different, from the ones that were unique to me and my family and my friends. Ended up going to grad school to get a degree, master's degree in urban planning. Worked in city government, learned about the gatekeeper role and how land use activity happens in the community. Worked for a local nonprofit community development corporation to be on the ground, to get the ground zero experience, to see, why it was so hard or not to actually get work done and to really bring about change. And but then I got curious about the financing side of community development and how the money was flowing or not into the community. A bank could say in the literature that they have invested, $1 billion into the community, and if you're in the neighborhood, you're like, man, I don't see any of that.
What
here.
Does it really mean? Right? Where?
What does that mean? Mm-hmm. And so I remember going after loans for affordable housing projects, pre-development, construction, anything, and always getting the nice, hey, we're interested. And then when it came to actually applying and getting word back, nothing. And I was just representing one organization, but multiply that by the dozens and dozens of individuals and organizations that are trying to get capital to bring to the community, all getting no. And now you see, the product of that, over decades.
Yeah.
Even as we see today.
Yeah. Pre-COVID, the community was already kind of undergoing a process of transformation, dealing with a lot of challenges, like a lot of Black communities around the country, but specifically here in LA. On the one hand, you have this emergence of a lot of smaller or new Black-owned businesses in Leimert and Inglewood. You have Destination Crenshaw. You have the Metro line coming through, and so the prospect of stimulating economic development is associated with that. But at the same time, that's all against the kind of the backdrop of gentrification, housing affordability, income and wealth disparity, and kind of these long, deep running challenges or obstacles or barriers to progress. And then COVID comes, and obviously, like all things, it has a disproportionate impact, not only on the health outcomes, but on the economic vibrance or stability of the community. And then you have civil unrest sparked by the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, but really focused greatly around just the social condition that Black people and other people of color but live in today, right? And so as that emotion subsides a bit, and we get back to like the building phase, right? In your opinion, based off all the years of experience kind of in this community development space, what do you think is the highest priority? Where should we really focus on first?
It's jobs and housing for me. It's hard to prioritize any of those two over the other, but I would prioritize those two over all others. If you drive up and down Crenshaw, from the time you get up the 10 freeway heading south, you'll see several new affordable housing developments targeting families and or seniors. On paper, that looks good aesthetically. It's looking better, but it's still not really meeting the needs, the affordable housing needs of the community. People are worried about getting priced out. The big G word, gentrification. Too many developments that are getting greenlighted that don't have enough affordable housing units. And I'm talking about like market rate developments through which they may have received a density bonus or other types of benefits, with the expectation that they would set aside a minimum number of units as affordable. But if you see a project that's being built, and 5-10%, maybe even 15% of the units are set aside as affordable, you can't really say that you're really doing anything for the community. That number needs to be higher, in my opinion. It needs to be closer to 40%. There are some projects that are being built that are 100% affordable. These are projects that are utilizing, public subsidies through welcome housing tax credits and other sources. But it's the market rate actors who, aren't looking for that. They're just looking for, a density bonus, parking relief. In exchange, will do the minimum.
Want to check a box so they can build the project that they really want to build.
Absolutely. But if you raise that minimum, and that takes some political guts, then you start to see affordable housing activity that truly is speaking to the needs of the community.
Okay. Are you an advocate of like mixed rate housing? It sounds like you're not against market rate housing, but you just want to see more of that be set aside to make sure that the folks who are in the community can afford to live there.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And putting that in concert with affordable housing development, correct?
Correct.
What's a challenge with affordable housing? Like if everybody can uniformly say that we want more affordable housing, what is like the logistical challenge that's presented that keeps us from just building thousands of units of affordable housing? When I read headlines, I see the city setting aside $125 million for affordable housing project here, 500 across the state, whatever that number is. But I don't see that money translating into the actual building of affordable housing units, right? So there has to be something that I'm not getting. Like, what's the disconnect there?
uh, for projects that are being built that are squarely affordable housing projects, they're getting public subsidies, they're utilizing low-income housing tax credits, tax-exempt bond financing, those types of projects where the project is going to be pretty much 100% affordable, and affordable being the rents are targeted towards people who are at 60% or below of the area median income. Those type of projects are going to always still get built, but there's only a certain amount of actors who can build those types of projects. There's a lot of brain damage and dollars and investment involved in bringing low-income housing tax credit projects to the marketplace. And there's also a threshold to which that type of project is feasible and infeasible. You're not going to see a 10-unit low-income housing tax credit project. There's too much brain damage involved with with giving that kind of project to the marketplace, and it doesn't pencil out, make financial sense. So you'll never, you won't see a project smaller than 35 units. Normally it will be 50 to 200 units because with all the brain damage that goes into bringing that to the marketplace, and all the folks who have to get paid and all the financing involved. It has to be a project of a certain level of size, and that also means you have to have enough space to build that size project. And we don't have a lot of space along the corridor in the community for those projects. The other part of it is like the market rate actors, who aren't trying to get tax credits and bond financing, but instead are just looking for a deal that pencils out. I found the land. I know how much it costs to build. I need to be able to charge this much in rent in order to afford, the mortgage and make a profit. Not your typical, developer. And I am in support of developers, making decisions on whether or not they're going to do a deal or not based off of it penciling out and giving them a return. The problem is that oftentimes when there's a affordable housing mandate in that project because they've asked for parking relief or some other density bonus to build up or build more units, the developer will argue that bringing those affordable units to bear will eat into their profit so significantly that the project is now infeasible. Now, if I was a elected official or community person with some standing to say, let me see your cash flow analysis. Let me see your pro forma to see exactly what we're talking about as far as what you'd be losing by increasing the number of affordable units in your project. And more often than not, you'll see that, they still would get a return. It may not be the return that they had hoped they received, that they may get in another part of town. But the project would be feasible. But I think if history shows us, a lot of these developers are doing all they can to cry broke, and elected officials over the years, not singling out anyone, but all of them, I don't think I've heard anyone ever say, I won't let any development be built unless it has, 40% affordability.
Right.
And if they're going to increase your profits, well, these are some of the things that we can do to ensure that you get some return, which a developer should get some return. Right. But difference between 8%, 20%, that's the other challenge.
Right. And do you think that there's and maybe a non-monetary incentive that that policymakers could offer to kind of help ease the burden on those cash-strapped market rate developers who can't find the feasibility of a 20% return?
Non-monetary, no. I mean, I think, if you're
Cash
in the
rules
game of,
everything around me, right?
yeah, if this is if you're in the business of making money out doing development, you're going to incentivized by the financial returns of it, and to convince a developer to think otherwise, or look at the model really differently, that's you may get a couple of wins, but that won't be a consistent paradigm to look at. The only other way to do it is to start talking about decommodifying housing to where the return aspect of it isn't the financial return aspect of it isn't the motivating driver.
So last question. So the Baldwin Hills Mall, right, and it grabbed a lot of attention, right, recently. And I won't ask you specifically about the mall. There's a lot of folks out there that are talking specifically about that project, but using that as an example. Those sort of like transformative projects, or the things that are taking place along Crenshaw, for folks in the community who really want to get involved in helping developers and policymakers kind of reimagine the community, but don't necessarily have the framework, have the experience or understanding about the development process. What is some advice, or what would you suggest that folks in the community can do to kind of have the greatest impact in what happens across South LA and Inglewood over the next 3-4 years?
You got to immerse yourself in the process as a private citizen through all the means that are available to you right now as a start. And that includes, looking at public records of permit applications. I could go online right now and look at the agenda for land use projects that are coming to bear in any part of the city, and go to the planning department website of LA City or whatever jurisdiction you're in, just to see what's happening. And you'll see that there's a lot of activity happening that you have no idea. You drive up and down Crenshaw, for example, look at properties you've been looking at for all your life, at least for a pretty long time. As you look at it, know that there are also developers who are looking at them, every day, thinking about what they can do. Some who are in the community, many who are not. But to get involved with the process, really, is going to entail just seeing what's actually happening, looking at what has happened over the last, 12, 24 months, as far as applications pulled. What are they asking to do with said site? Who is the applicant? Do some digging on them. What's their history? You can reach out to them. In some cases, if they're a public entity, you can go to your council office through their field deputy or some other rep, planning or economic development deputy, to figure out what's being planned for a particular site. Even if it's been sitting dormant, underutilized, vacant for years, doesn't mean that there aren't conversations happening around that particular site. So the first thing is to really just assume that you're not the only person thinking about a certain site, and if not, who else is, and how can I be a part of that conversation? Other than that, it's another forward-thinking do is to begin having conversation with folks who are landowners, or who are existing landowners, existing developers who are active in the community, and see if you can get some time with them to walk them through what their plans are for the sites that they currently manage or own, or the ones that they're going after. And most developers want buy-in. Some want to be left alone, just want to do their thing, but there are others that know that they can't just come in, like a thief in the night and make moves without, being held accountable. I think a certain group that tried to get them all will learn that the hard way.
I believe so.
Yeah. So those are the things, it's really just trying to just immersing yourself and consuming content and getting in front of people and asking questions, and getting smarter on how land use activity really happens in the community. It's sometimes it is a private actor just going to submit a permit application, and you're none the wiser about that. And how would you know about it? You got to look at agendas from community planning meetings and things that are going through the building department. Talking to your council office, hey, what's going on with this site? What's going on? How can I learn more about what's being planned? And be more proactive and not always reactive.
Yeah, and it's all public information. Like that's something that's changed over the last 20 years with real estate. Is all of the title information, all of the permitting information. Like it's all public information, and as always, the political leadership, local or regional or statewide, they work for us, right? And so folks have to be able to understand how to flex that muscle and flex it appropriately when needed to make sure that the right projects are getting done, right? But I think I think you hit on it more broadly is the education piece, right? So that we can understand what the right projects look like. That every project that comes in from an outside developer that is market rate is not necessarily a bad project. It just may need some help finding the right balance, right? Or it may work within the broader tapestry of the development that's taking place in a particular area, but we kind of got to know these things, right? And we got to have a comprehensive strategy and game plan for understanding what it is that we want and what we don't want. Otherwise, we end up kind of sitting around and saying we don't want anything. And for you in the banking space, that, once lenders decide that the party is over and it's time to conserve resources, lending stops, development stops, and you can get left with the same product that's there now, right? And you missed out on the opportunity to get a boom. So it's a very delicate balance, I think, that we have to walk in the community in terms of being smart about gentrification, being smart about development, but also not blocking every single project that comes along.
Can't block. Sometimes blocking is necessary, but again, that's a reactive activity. We also, beyond education, got to get our coins up. Just as I said, every site you look at, someone else is looking at it too. Some folks look at it have money, and they're putting their coins together with their partnership through LLC or REIT or some other entity, saying, "Let's go get it." That's something that we also have to get serious about. Is really just putting our coins together, dollars together, and pooling resources, pooling money, so that we don't have to be reactive every time we hear about a site, changing hands or a project being proposed. Go get the site, hold it, and have plans on what to do with it. And that's the other part of it beyond education. It's really getting actively involved in land use through trying to capture it, steward it, profit from it.
100%. Hey, brother, I appreciate your time. I look forward to having you on several more times in the future. There's a lot of things taking place out in the city, and your insight is always welcome, man. I appreciate it.
Happy to do it. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and of course, whenever you want to do this again, be happy to do so.
That's it, brother. Hey, thank you, everybody. This concludes our interview with Jimar Wilson. Once again, my name is Matthew Gates. We're in the building, LA. Your online source for people, projects, and policies reshaping our